Why is everyone thin? And there is only one woman who is tall, fat, beautiful, but the other villagers are thin. The village of Ego sat like a quiet whisper at the back of a water bank. Ego was no far beyond its fruitfulness borders. Traders from distant towns came to buy their cassavas, their yams, their fruits, especially their orange, which were said to be the sweetest in the region. But the people of Ego were hardworking, humble, and above all, simple. But there was one thing about Ego that was impossible to ignore. Everyone was thin, not just slim, thin. Their waists looked like twins, their cheeks hollow, their shoulders sharp beneath their clothes. It was not sickness, it was not famine. It was simply how they were. Generation had passed and the people of Ego had always been this way. Lean, weary, almost fragile in appearance. Everyone except Ogoma was a mystery, wrapped in flesh and beauty. She was tall, taller than most men in the village, and her body was full, heavy, and soft in ways that seemed unnatural among her people. Her arms were thick, her hips wide, her stomach round like a calabash filled to the brim. Her skin shone with a strange glow, smooth and fair, as though it drank in light and reflected it back. Her hair was always braided in short, intricate plaits that rest down on her shoulder. And when she walked, people stared, not always out of admiration, sometimes out of confusion of how her waist moved side by side, sometimes out of fear. How can one person carry so much flesh? The women would whisper as they pounded yam in the evenings. Does she eat more than all of us combined? The men would joke, though their laughter always faded too quickly. Even children would pause their game just to watch her pass. But Ogoma never seemed to notice, or perhaps she did. She walked with confidence, her wrapper tied firmly around her waist, her steps slow and deliberate. When she laughed, it was loud and rich, echoing through the compound like the beat of a drum. And when she smiled, it could disarm even the most suspicious mind. Yet beneath all that beauty, something unsettled the village. Because Ogoma was not just different, she was unexplained. If Ogoma was unusual, then her husband Chidi was even more so. Where she was tall, he was short. Where she was large, he was painfully thin. Chidi looked like a man carved from dry wood. His limbs narrow, his chest flat, his face sharp and always slightly sunken. His voice was soft, almost too soft, as though he feared the air might reject his words. No one understood how the two had come together. Some say Chidi had been enchanted. Others whispered that Ogoma had chosen him deliberately, that she needed a man who would never question her, never challenge her, never look too deeply. But Chidi loved her. That much was clear. He followed her like a shadow, always eager to please, always smiling at her as though she were the only thing that made sense in his world. When she spoke, he listened. When she laughed, he laughed, even if he did not understand the joke. Their home stood apart from the rest of the village, unlike the mud huts with thatched roofs that most villagers lived in. Ogoma and Chindi house was built with cement block and covered with corrugated zinc sheets that gleamed under the sun. It was modest, yes, but strong, modern and strangely out of place. Where did they get the money? People often ask. Chidi was a farmer like everyone else. Ogoma did not go to the market often. Yet somehow, they lived better than most. It was another mystery the village could not solve. And like all unsolved mysteries, it began to grow. The first time Ogoma gave birth, the entire village rejoiced. Children were blessing in Ego, signs of continuity, proof that life moved forward even in the hardship. Women gathered around her hut, bringing food, singing songs, praising her strength. Chidi beamed with pride, My child has come, he told anyone who would listen. My child would grow strong, but the child did not grow. By the second day, the baby was gone. No one saw it leave. No one heard anything unusual. Ogoma said the child had fallen sick in the night and died before dawn. It was sad, but not unheard of. The village mourned and life continued. Then it happened again and again. Every time Ogoma gave birth, the same pattern followed. Joy, celebration, then loss. At first, people offer comfort. Some spirits are wicked, the elders said. Perhaps her womb is cursed, the women whispered. Maybe she should visit the Dibia, others suggested. But after the fifth child, comfort turned into suspicious. How can this keep happening? Adure asked one evening as she sat outside her hut, fanning herself. Adure was Ogoma's closest neighbor, a sharp-eyed woman who noticed everything and forgot nothing. No one else loses children like this, she continued, not again and again. Maybe it is her body, someone replied weakly. Adure shook her head slowly. No, don't say that, she said. There is something we are not saying. And for the first time, the village began to wonder not just about the death, but about Ogoma herself. It was during the rainy season when everything finally changed. The night was thick with moisture, the air heavy and still. Rain has fallen earlier. Ogoma had just given birth again to a bouncing baby boy. The news spread quickly, but this time something was different. There was no celebration, no songs, only quiet murmurs. Let this baby not end up like others, two gossipers said to each other, while the other shouted, Ise. People were watching, waiting, and Adure was thinking. That night, long after the villagers had gone to sleep, Adure wrapped her cloth tightly around her body and stepped out into the darkness. She moved carefully, her feet silent against the wet ground, her breath steady. The moon was hidden behind clouds, leaving the world dim and uncertain. She approached Ogoma's house slowly. From inside she heard it, the baby's cry, sharp, hungry, alive. Adure's heart pounded. Is it still alive? She whispered to herself. She moved closer to the small window, a narrow opening just large enough to allow air inside. She hesitated, then she peeped, and what she saw froze her blood. Inside the dimly light room, a small lantern flickered shadow against the wall. Ogoma sat on the floor. Her wrapper was loosened, her hair slightly undone. Before her was a mortar, and in her hands was the baby. The crying stopped abruptly. Adure's breath caught in her throat. Ogoma's face changed. The softness vanished. Her eyes hardened, dark and hollow. Then, without hesitation, she lifted the baby and brought it down into the mortar. Once, twice, again. The seeking sound filled the room. Adure staggered back, covering her mouth to stop a scream. Tears streamed down her face as her body trembled violently. No, 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 she whispered. But inside, Ogoma continued, calm, focused, as though she was preparing a meal. And then she began to eat. Adure turned around. Adure did not stop running until she reached the center of the village. Wake up, she screamed. Wake up, come and see. Doors opened. Voices rose. What is it? What happened? She is eating her child, Adure cried, her voice breaking. Ogoma, she's eating her baby. The words struck the air like thunder. For a moment, no one moved. Then everything erupted. Men grabbed sticks. Women covered their mouths in horror. And together, the people of Ego rushed towards Ogoma's house. They burst into the compound. The door was pushed open. And there she was, Ogoma, sitting calmly, her mouth stained with blood and her hands eating. The room fell silent. No one spoke, no one moved. The truth stood before them, raw, undeniable, monstrous. A woman, a mother, devouring her own child. At the doorway stood Chidi, He had just arrived. In his hand was a small nylon bag of baby milk. His face was light with joy. "This one will stay," he said softly. "This one will live." Then he saw. The bag fell from his hand. His smile faded, and his world shattered. The next morning, the elders gathered. There was no debate, no confusion. What Ogoma has done was an abomination beyond forgiveness. She has eaten her own flesh, the oldest elder said. She has broken the law of life itself. Ogoma did not deny it. She did not cry. She did not beg. She simply sat there. She simply sat there, watching the widow's same dark, empty eyes. And so it was decided. She would be banished, driven out of Ego, never to return. Chidi was left behind, a broken man holding nothing but silence. As Ogoma walked out of the village, no one followed, no one spoke. But as she reached the edge of the forest, she turned. For a brief moment, her face softened, almost human, almost regretful. Then it was gone. Immediately she disappeared into the big tree. Some women began to murmur. This was exactly why she is fatter than every other person in this village. Because I know in Ego, nobody is meant to be fat, but to be thin. The village continued. Hold your children close. Ogoma is still hungry. Do not wander at night alone, because there is still hunger of Ogoma wandering around in silence, and that hunger never ends. If you like this story, please don't forget to share, like, and comment, and turn on the notification button for more interesting stories so that you will get notified whenever I drop another story. Bye.